Jai Gurudev. Today we would like to talk about the Sanskrit language. In the last few days we have been seeing that it was because of misunderstanding of the actual meaning of the words in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, that misunderstanding about the method of meditation crept in, and which resulted in the loss of the benefits that would have otherwise accrued if we had practiced the right system of meditation. Now, that is just one example where we find that Sanskrit language and the knowledge of Sanskrit language is very important. Actually, in summary, if you want to emphasize the importance of learning Sanskrit language, we can say that just like if you want to study physics, then we have to use the language of physics. And the language of physics, today we are going to discuss about the Sanskrit language. And as we had seen in the last few days, that because of the misunderstanding of the actual meaning of words in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, there have been a lot of misunderstandings, and which resulted in the wrong method of meditation being propagated, and therefore the benefits which would have otherwise accrued were not available. But we have been able to correct those misunderstandings in the last few lectures about the real meaning of the sutras, and we realized that the normal meaning that is ascribed to the first two sutras, in which people have described that mind has to be controlled, mind has to be forced, and now we understand that it is a natural, spontaneous, effortless process of meditation which results in automatically quietening the mind. But along with that, what happens is that the stresses in the nervous system get resolved, and it is the resolution of those stresses in the system that results in increased capacity of the mind, increased capacity of the body, and all the aspects of life flourish. It's like watering the root of a plant, and the leaves and the flowers and the fruits, everything becomes better. So this is, we realized by understanding the actual meaning of the words, and in particular it was the understanding of the prefixes that were attached to the verbs in chitta vritti, nirodha, and then atha yoga, anushasanam, and nirod. Anu and ni are the prefixes. No? But today we want to talk in more general terms about the Sanskrit language itself. And as I was just saying, maybe because of the lack of connectivity, you wouldn't have heard it. I'd repeat. Just like if you want to study physics, then you have to speak or study physics in the language of physics. And the language of physics is mathematics. You can describe certain concepts of physics in longhand, and pages after pages you can describe, but the exact meaning will not be clear unless you write the exact equations. And not only the equations bring out the full meaning, but they give us brevity also. You can, for example, if you were to write all the laws of electricity and magnetism, the 4 equations of Maxwell's, which are very famous, then even that itself is a very short thing. You just write 4 half lines of equations, and then you get all the laws of. But then if you use mathematics and use 4-dimensional notation, then all you have to say is square del phi equal to 0. That's all. Similarly, for relativity theory, E is equal to mc square. It's very simple, very precise, very to the point. And it hides within that equation a huge amount of knowledge. So we know that the language of physics is mathematics, and unless we use mathematics, it will not be possible to understand physics, particularly the deeper aspects of physics. Similarly, if we want to experience, if we want to understand spiritual progress, if we want to understand about Atma, about the mind, about the self, all aspects of the self, starting from the subtlest, which is Atma, the Buddhi, Man, and the body, and the senses, all the subtlest to the grossest, everything about not only the person but life in general. In fact, you would say, if you want to study the science of life, how to behave, then all that is encompassed in Vedic knowledge. And if you want to understand Vedic knowledge, then the language used for Vedic knowledge is Sanskrit. Now, this may seem to be a big claim, and you might think, why everything else can be translated into different languages? But there are certain features of Sanskrit which make it much more amenable to the kind of expressions which contain a large amount of information within a very short expression. First of all, the alphabet itself. No. The whole philosophy of Sanskrit is from inward to outwards. Normally, as we just discussed in a few lectures before, that Vedic science is the science of knowledge, and knowledge consists of three parts or three aspects of knowledge: the knower, the process of knowing, and the object of knowledge. In modern times, modern science has focused on the object of knowledge. Different sciences have developed depending upon different objects of knowledge. Physics takes the objects as matter and energy, chemistry, chemical molecules, biology, the physical bodies, etc. But all are objects, objective sciences. What has been missing is the subject and the process that connects the subject and the object. Now, of late, there has been more and more interest in modern scientific discourse also about the subject. But we have started from the object, and slowly we are going towards the subject, trying to understand what consciousness is, trying to understand what mind is, etc. Even the field of psychology, which is the science of mind basically, has started from objective observations and then trying to figure out what is happening in the mind. Whereas the process of understanding in Vedic literature is starting from the subject, starting from inside, starting from what we already have and what everybody already has. No? Consciousness is what makes us human. So as human beings, everybody has consciousness. If we understand consciousness fully, then we can understand the process of communication between the subject and the object, and then later about all the objects also. So whole of Vedic science has a different approach, that it starts from in and goes outwards, whereas modern scientific knowledge starts from out and then goes inwards. Now this is expressed even in the alphabet of Sanskrit. First of all, the alphabet of Sanskrit is a highly organized system. If we contrast it with the Roman alphabet, for example, or any other alphabet, A, B, C, D, there doesn't seem to be any logic about that. But in Sanskrit language, first of all, the vowels and the consonants are separated. First we have all the vowels, and then we have the consonants. Now, the vowels also, as I was just saying, it is from inside to out. First of all, let's understand the difference between vowels and consonants. Those sounds which can be continuously spoken are vowels. Like E, you can keep on speaking that. Oo, ah. So these are vowels. Consonants, on the other hand, are point values. Suppose you want to say ki or ti, or ku, then only in the beginning, when the restriction in the mouth, it just opens, the sound of the consonant comes, ka, pa, ta. No? When you say pa, the mouth is closed at the lips, and as soon as it opens, the sound of pa comes. But then it is the vowel which gets continued. If you say poo or ti, then the tongue is touching the teeth, and when it comes out, the sound of ta comes, but then afterwards it is the vowel that continues. So that is the difference between consonants and vowels. Now, therefore, what we see is that vowels are more important than consonants, because the actual sounds that we speak are vowels only. Consonants are only the starting point and the ending point of vowels. No? You can say up, then up. You can extend as much as you want, but when you say up, the closing point is the p value, no? The p, but the p sound. No? So the closing value or the starting value, like a rod is there, the beginning end point and the last end point. These are the consonants, but the rod itself is the vowel. So the sound, all sounds basically are vowel sounds. They just start and stop in different ways, which are consonants. Okay, that's one thing. Now, even within vowels, all the vowels are continuous sounds, but some vowels have the passage of our mouth modified. For example, if we say oo, then the lips are rounded, and when the sound comes, it comes in the form of oo. When you say e, then if you notice, the tongue is lifted upwards towards the palate, and the passage is modified a little, and because of this modification of the passage, e sound comes. Now, what would be the purest of sounds? What would be the sound which is not only continuous, but it is completely unmodified also? That sound would be without modifying at the level of lips, at the level of tongue, anything, just the whole passage is fully open and the sound is continuously coming, so that is a. Yeah? So, a is the first vowel in the alphabet of Sanskrit. There is also a saying in Sanskrit, akaro vai sarva vak, which means all speech is nothing but a. Yeah? How is that? Actually, it is a only which, when coming through rounded lips, becomes oo. No, it's and now we round the lips. Similarly, it is a only which, when coming through the constricted passage, when the tongue is lifted upwards to the palate, then it becomes e. Like that. No? If you speak it yourself, then you'll be able to understand how the tongue moves, because you can't see it, but you can experience it yourself. Okay. So the most basic sound is a. Its modifications in different forms of the passage of the mouth result in the other vowels. And then of these vowels, the starting and ending at different points of the passage, that determines which consonant comes. For example, if I were to say and then suddenly stop the passage at the outermost level, which is the lips, then what will happen? So the p, the pa sound would come. Yeah. So it is the way we stop the vowel that the consonant is determined. Or we can start with that, the mouth is closed at the lips, and then we suddenly open it and say pa. No? So it's the starting point or the ending point which determines which consonant it will be. But consonant in itself is not a continuous sound. It's not a sound at all. In fact, it's just the starting point of a sound or the ending point of a sound. Yeah. So first we have vowels, which are the real sounds. Then we have consonants. Amongst the vowels also, we have the most pure form of the sound without any stoppages and without any modifications of the passage, that is and as we have just seen, that this is only which transforms itself into different vowels, and it is those vowels which transform themselves into different consonants depending upon how they start and how they stop. So now in Rigved, the first letter of Rigved is A. It starts with Agni Mile Purohitam. So the proper way of reciting is Agni Mile Purohitam Yajyasya Deva Mritvijam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam. This is the first Richa of Rigved. Okay. Now, a beautiful aspect of Vedic literature is that all the knowledge is generally given in the first instant itself, in a very concise and concentrated form. And if a person is able to understand it with that concise and concentrated form, he is done. But then if he does not understand, then an elaboration is given following that. And still, if a person does not understand, then a further elaboration. It's like the whole knowledge in its compacted form in the beginning, then its commentary, and then a commentary of the commentary, and the commentary of that commentary. This is what is called Apaurusheya Bhashya. Apaurusheya Bhashya means that Rigveda gives its own commentary. It's not that somebody else is commenting upon Rigveda, but every following portion of Rigveda gives the commentary of the previous. Now, how would you represent total knowledge? There are many beautiful concepts getting involved, but in each of these concepts you can talk for hours and days and months. But today I would like to give just an overview, and some of these concepts you might look very foreign to you, not very familiar, and you might even be doubting how can you say that and all those things. But I just want to give a sort of a list of all these topics, so that if one is interested, one can go into the details and find the logic behind that. Now, the principle of Veda was that all knowledge is given in the beginning. Now, how do you represent all knowledge? One is that knowledge is structured in consciousness. A normal understanding, normally people think that consciousness experiences through our senses, we get the information from outside, and that knowledge gets because we say, unless I knew about Calcutta before, there was no Calcutta in my knowledge. And then when Kolkata became known to me, then that information came, and now that is all right. Knowledge does get imprinted on consciousness also. But what is the source of knowledge? Let's say we talk about the real knowledge. Now, the name of a city, etc., these are man-made knowledge. But when we say knowledge, we mean the real knowledge which is natural. Like the laws of physics are natural knowledge. You can't change it. It's not depending upon our conventions. We can decide to call Kolkata in some other way also. But we cannot decide whether 2 plus 2 would be 4 or whether 2 plus 2 would be 5. That is something which is decided by nature. So that is what we mean by knowledge. Now, where does knowledge come from? I study Newton's laws in school. How did I know that? No, it seems that before I did not know the laws of nature, so my consciousness was like a blank sheet. Then the teacher told me about the laws of Newton, and those things got imprinted in my consciousness. That's the normal understanding. But from where did the teacher get it? The teacher got it from the books. And from where did the book get it? The book got it from Newton, because Newton wrote those laws. And from where did Newton get those laws? He got those laws from his own consciousness, his own understanding. So that means the origin of the laws of Newton is in the consciousness of Newton. And the consciousness of Newton and consciousness of anybody else is not different. They have the same quality. No? So essentially the knowledge was already existing in the consciousness. The knowledge that 2 plus 2 is 4 is already existing in consciousness. Even if I get it from someone else, it's just that I'm not able to derive it myself from my own consciousness, because I have not been trained to do that. But in fact, it comes from consciousness of one person, gets transmitted to another person, and gets imprinted on the consciousness of the other person. But even if it is imprinted on the consciousness of the other person, it is not irrespective of the consciousness of the second person. For example, if all the knowledge were to come from what has been told to me, if someone right in the beginning, when I was a small child, I was told 2 plus 2 is 4. But suppose someone starts telling a small child 2 plus 2 is 5 and keep on repeating it. Maybe the child will keep repeating it also and start believing 2 plus 2 plus is equal to 5. But after some time, when he grows up and when he starts using that knowledge, then definitely a stage would come when he'll realize that something is amiss, something is wrong here. No? Because it is not, it doesn't work basically. No? All the knowledge that he has is not compatible with, different parts of knowledge are not compatible with each other. No? And he will realize that 2 plus 2 is not 5, even if everybody else says that 2 plus 2 is 5. Now, even we thought that this knowledge of 2 plus 2 is equal to 5 came from someone and it was imprinted on my blank consciousness. But the fact that I was able to check whether it is correct or not means that this knowledge was already in my consciousness. Because how else would I check? I have to compare with the standard. And I compared that with the standard which is already existing in my consciousness, and with comparison I found that this does not fit, so this knowledge must be wrong. So all knowledge is essentially already existing in consciousness. Now, this consciousness has various modes of functioning. One is when it is active into thoughts. When it is active into thoughts, then the consciousness gets limited by that thought. Therefore, it only has limited knowledge about that thought, about that object of attention. But when does this consciousness have all knowledge? It is when the boundaries of this thought are removed. And that happens when the thought settles down. For example, a thought is like a wave in water. No? A wave, if it is allowed to settle down, allowed means if a wave exists only as long as some energy is being provided to it, as long as someone is shaking the water, or as long as the wind is blowing, the wave can exist. But if this supply of energy from outside disturbances are removed, then by its own weight, the wave will settle down. Its height would start to decrease and its width would keep on increasing. And ultimately, when it is completely flat, its height becomes 0 and its width becomes infinite, or as much as the whole pond. So this is like the silent state of consciousness. This is called pure consciousness. When the thoughts, the waves of thoughts settle down spontaneously by their own nature and come to a state when there are no thoughts, there is no mantra in meditation, and we are left with just the experience that I am. This is pure consciousness. Now, in this pure consciousness, there are no limitations because there is no thought. Only a thought can have limitations, a beginning point and the ending point, or a region in which it is active. And so, therefore, that is pure consciousness. And it is this consciousness which contains all knowledge. No? And so, now we want to, the whole topic today is how Sanskrit language is very specifically designed to express the deepest principles of consciousness. No? In fact, the very word Sanskrit means refined. No? It is designed. It is actually the rules have been made. Everything has been set. No? So that it is able to express the deepest concepts in a most concise manner. No? Now, we want to represent this experience of infinite consciousness, of pure consciousness without any thoughts, which is the field of all knowledge, which contains all knowledge within it. No, the words that have been used are also important. The knowledge is structured in consciousness. It is not that knowledge is imprinted on consciousness, but the structure itself. Yeah. How to understand that? Like, suppose we have a cloth, for example, and in the cloth there are wrinkles. So these wrinkles are like waves on water. In our analogy for the mind, these wrinkles are like thoughts. And when the mind settles down, when all the thoughts go away, these wrinkles go away, and what we are left with is a flat surface of the cloth. Now, in the beginning, there seems to be nothing here. There's no wrinkle, no thought, nothing. So it's flat. But if we start experiencing this pure consciousness and keep on experiencing it more and more, our ability to experience it, the finer details becomes more and more refined. Or in other words, you can say we look at it more and more closer with a microscope. And then what will happen is that we'll start realizing that this flatness of the cloth has a structure to it. There are warp and weft. There are threads in it. No? So, and in the cloth is nothing but those structures. Apart from those threads, the cloth does not exist. No? Similarly, in consciousness also, the structure of consciousness is the structure of knowledge. Another example could be, this is a very deep and important concept, so it will be good to use many examples, like using the concept of the waves in water. The waves are like the thoughts, and when the thoughts settle down, the waves are gone, and we are left with the flat surface of water. Now, this tendency of the water to become flat, this is because it is liquid. No. In a solid, if you make a modification, then it doesn't come back to its flatness. It's the fluidity of water which makes it. And why is water fluid? Why is water liquid? It is fluid because the molecules that consist, comprise of water, the molecules are always in constant motion. In contrast to a solid in which the molecules are stuck to each other, in a liquid the molecules are constant motion. Now, when there is seemingly no activity in that flat surface of water, the water is still liquid. No? And the liquidity is because of the internal motion of these molecules. Similarly, in the case of mind, when there are no thoughts, seemingly there is no activity in consciousness. But this state of consciousness, which is pure consciousness, is still consciousness. It is not anything dead. It is alive. And this life means that there is some internal activity going on. And this internal activity is called Vedic activity, the activity of knowledge. That is the knowledge that structures consciousness. And that is all knowledge. everything that will ever be known to anyone is always already present in that state. No, as we just said with examples, because whatever knowledge will come after 100 years also, somehow or the other we'll be able to check whether that knowledge is valid or not. And how will we check it? We will check it by our own consciousness. So our own consciousness must be having that knowledge already, because of which we can use it as a standard against which we check whether the coming knowledge from outside is right or wrong. No? So this structure of consciousness is Veda, the knowledge. And when we say Veda is eternal, in the corresponding example of the waves of water, etc., these waves are never eternal. These waves need energy from outside. Only the wind can support these waves, or shaking of water can support these waves. But when the waves are settled, then the internal motion of molecules is completely frictionless. It does not stop at all. As long as the water is liquid, this internal motion of molecules will be constantly there, even if that water sits there for thousands of years. So this internal motion is completely frictionless, does not consume any energy, and therefore it is eternal. Similarly, in the pure state of consciousness, in the samadhi state of consciousness, there are no thoughts, no external activity. But the internal activity which is going on, the internal activity which constitutes this consciousness, internal activity which is the very basis of this consciousness, being consciousness, that internal activity is eternal, that never stops. And it is that which is Veda, which are the richas of Veda, which are, I'm not talking about a particular book. Of course, the particular book also is Veda. We can go into details later. But here we are taking Veda means knowledge. The literal meaning of the word Veda is knowledge. You know? And complete Veda means all knowledge. And we just seen that all knowledge, whether it has been discovered yet or not, whether it will come some thousand of years later, all that knowledge is already present in that pure state of consciousness, and that is eternal. That is why we say the Veda is eternal. And it is this that results into all the expressions of thoughts, etc. So that is the source of all internal creation. Today the time is not enough, but we'll see that this can be equated with the unified field of all the laws of nature, and we'll see that not only it is the source of all internal creation, but it is the source of all external creation also. So all of the universe, the objective aspect of the universe, all these galaxies and everything, and all the subjective aspect of the universe, our mind, our thoughts, our senses, our intellect, our consciousness, all that is basically structured in consciousness. And is this structure of consciousness which is Veda, it is that structure which creates the whole universe, the external and internal aspects of the universe. So it is Veda which is the source of whole universe. It is the Veda which is consciousness, and it is the Veda which is eternal, and that is I, that is me. So there's a saying in Sanskrit which says Vedaham and Vedoham. I know, that is Vedaham, and I am Veda, Vedoham. No? So this is in short today we have talked. Maybe we'll continue this tomorrow about how the first letter of Rig Veda, which is A, represents this consciousness, and then what happens, how its commentary is given in the letters which come after that, and how the different vowels and consonants are arranged in the Sanskrit alphabet. All that we'll be able to discuss tomorrow. But most important thing, all this intellectual understanding is an entertainment, is a way to understand things, but like any science which has a theory and a practical aspect, without the experiment, without the practical aspect, the theory is not useful. So meditation is very, very important. No? So each of these sessions that we are conducting on this live chat, we will be finishing with a meditation. Yeah? And all those people who have been meditating for a long time, they need not follow the steps of starting that I'll ask you to do 2 or 3 times, closing and opening the eyes. But it will be good to start that way if you feel like. And for anyone who has seeing this for the first time, in very short, I can describe that a meditation process involves sitting comfortably in a chair, preferably with a back seat, leaving the body completely relaxed, and it does not involve any concentration of the mind. We are not supposed to direct the mind anywhere. No, we will be using a mantra, which is a sound. We will not be thinking about the meaning of the mantra, just using the sound. And the sound also, we will allow the sound to become fainter and fainter and allow it to vanish, allow it to dissolve. We will not try to continuously and clearly think the mantra. Okay? And a good way to start would be that I'll ask you to close and open the eyes a few times. And this time when we are closing the eyes, we are not supposed to think the mantra also. We'll just sit comfortably with eyes closed. And when the mantra is to be taken, I'll let you know. So let's all sit comfortably and let's close our eyes. Let's open the eyes. Let's close the eyes again. Let's open the eyes. Close the eyes. So open the eyes. So we must have realized that just by sitting comfortably with eyes closed, our mind starts to settle down. Some peace starts to be felt. And then some thoughts start to come in the mind. So we see that these thoughts came automatically without any effort from our side. So similarly, if the mantra also comes effortlessly, that will be a good start. So for that, what we'll do is, this time when we close the eyes, we'll sit for about half a minute comfortably without thinking the mantra, and some thoughts will start coming, and in between the mantra may also come. And the mantra we are using is Ram. No? That's the most common mantra, and but we'll be saying it very effortlessly, very faintly. No? And if the mantra comes automatically like any other thought, then it is a good start. If it does not come for half a minute, then we'll start it from our side, and then allow whatever happens, we allow that to happen. We sit there like that for about 20 minutes, and after about 20 minutes, you can open the eyes and see your watch. If 20 minutes are not over, you can close the eyes again and continue. And like that, after 20 minutes, you can yourself open the eyes. So we are going to start now. Let's all sit comfortably and close the eyes.